Hey, last time we chatted, I mentioned I'd talk to you about the fork upgrade I've done on this bike and some of the reasons why, right? Quite a contentious thing. You can spend a lot of money on suspension and sometimes not always get the results you wanted to. It's actually something I've resisted on every bike. I've always ridden them in stock setup, apart from putting the right springs in the bike. My theory has always been if you want to get better and you want to go faster, train harder and spend more time on the bike, right? Eventually, you'll reach a ceiling where the hardware will help if you make a change. But I've been running a few years now and I felt I'd reached a level where I could do what I could do with the stock setup. And maybe if I got a few, let's put it this way, maybe if I bought a little bit of talent, I could go a bit faster, right? That was the theory. Just to talk about the stock setup for a second, I think I mentioned the last time, if I'm out riding with my mates, having fun, a weekend away riding, they're absolutely fine. They're not deficient in any way, they did the job perfectly. I really wasn't unhappy with them at all. But this is the first bike I've really started racing sort of more regularly. And what I was finding is that I reached a kind of level, I'd hit a ceiling. I obviously wanted to improve a little bit, but I just felt I couldn't. And the reason why I couldn't was because I felt like I was riding the bike as fast as I was willing to push it, right? Any faster, it got really difficult to manage, firstly. And secondly, I was hanging on for dear life. The front was actually quite harsh and, bumping and shifting around a lot and, struggling to track. And I just felt that if we improved the performance of the forks, I might be able to go a bit faster, right? Essentially, there were two problems. If you're on single track or G track or something where there's lots of loose and broken stones, and you're trying to carry a lot of pace over that, I was finding it was very difficult to keep the front tracking in the direction that I wanted to go. And obviously, the faster you go, the harder that gets, the harder you have to hang on to the bars, and you start fighting the thing, and it becomes exhausting. So that was something I wanted to cure straight away. I want to get more comfort at speed on rough surfaces. I'm not talking the very technical stuff. I'm talking about trying to go fast on broken ground. That was the first issue. The second was the lack of bite I was getting from the front. So as I was coming up, want to make a turn, pitch the bike, lean on the outside bar, do everything technically correctly as whatever you've learned, and I was feeling the front was still washing. It would take a set to a point and then just break away at the front and I'd lose the front. Essentially, if I can equate it to a car condition, it was understeering. It was wanting to push on in the corner rather than take a set and follow the corner. And the problem was I was going stiffer on the damping to try and help to track straight in the bumps. That wasn't helping my cornering. So I had these two sort of opposing issues. Also, the stock fork used to handle the compression on this side, so the bump stack is over here, and then rebound on this side, so rebound on the other side. I will say this, the clickers worked. You could make a change and go stiffer or faster and you would feel a difference. But what was apparent to me was I would only feel those in the top and the bottom of the stroke. So if I was going stiffer on bump, the initial impact would stiffen up. And if I was going stiffer on rebound, the initial part of the rebound would be stiff. But in the middle of the stroke, it felt relatively undamped. So all that was happening, it was, I was getting some more control. It was starting to feel really stiff though. And in the middle, it still had this, feeling that it wasn't really, you weren't really in control of the stroke. And that's something I wanted to cure straight away. I did a lot of research. I rode a lot of bikes with different forks. I looked at different brand forks to put in here. I did in WP. You can spend a lot of money on suspension if you want to, trust me. And then one day I rode my mate's bike, 20 model, I think, KTM, with the TBR conversion up front. What the TBR conversion does is essentially doesn't share the loads between bump and it shares the load rather between bump and rebound between the forks. So rather than having one bump doing one fork doing one function and one fork doing another, essentially what happens is that they get shared out between the forks. So essentially you've got a compression stack in both forks, so you adjust compression at the bottom of both forks, and rebound is adjusted from the top both forks. So essentially both forks are sharing the load. and doing a job. The forks, I sent them off, they got done, they got couriered back to me. They arrived literally the day before I went into a race. So once again, no testing beforehand. Bolted them in, went straight into the race, and I was frankly blown away. It had really cured that tracking at fast speed problem. It felt smooth. I could carry a lot more pace, and the bike felt very, very settled in the front. So that was the first thing. I was very impressed with that. Initially, I had the clickers set a little bit too stiff, so there was still quite a lot of feedback coming through the bar. But over the course of that day, I softened it off and got it to a place where I was really happy. The other thing is, it was turning in beautifully and taking a set. Now, the interesting thing, before with the old forks, I had tried to cure this turn-in issue and this inability to take a set and grip as you loaded the front wheel by changing the attitude of the bike. And the way I did that was to wind on preload at the back, essentially cant the bike forward, put more weight over the front tire, and help it on turn in. And to be honest, it did. It helped. It got better in that regard. That did nothing for the compliance at the back of the bike though, which was feeling quite harsh. And it was only when I changed the forks and the front settled down that I kind of felt there's a big problem at the back. It's harsh and it's kicking, and I'm not getting good traction, and particularly when I'm trying to launch or lay power down, it's spinning up, it's kicking back. I'm just not happy with the way it is. So immediately on the next test ride, I took it from 75mm sag. That's miles away from the manual. The manual is 110, right? I took it from 75 back to 100. It improved immediately. I could feel I was going in the right direction. I then took it to 110, which is what the manual says, right? Surprise, surprise. The manual was right. But that made a huge difference. The bike is now far more compliant at the back. It doesn't kick as much. It's got this beautiful, soft compression into traction. So if you're trying to do a step up, you just load the bike, hit it, it gets traction and launches you forward. And before it used to either kick or spin. So going to the stock sag setting it back here has really helped. That means I've wound out quite a bit of preload, but I no longer needed it because the forks helped me to get the front to turn and to grip. So here's the weird thing. Spend some money up front on the forks, helped cure the whole bike, and the back now feels far better, and I can actually run the manual setting at the back in terms of sag, which I couldn't do before. So overall, it's been money really well spent. Really impressed with the service. Like I say, there was a 3-4 day turnaround, couriered straight to my house, bolted straight in, and great after sales service too. They got in touch with me, see how things are going, and we talked clickers and all sorts, and it's nice to have those experts giving you a bit of advice on setup. So I'm really happy with that. I can highly recommend it. I think value for money wise, this is probably the cheapest conversion you can do for the biggest result, right? So very pleased I've done that, and actually a little upset it's taken me so many years to invest in the forks. But yeah, overall I'm very happy with the bike. In the other video I've done, I talked about a few of the other parts I've added. I'll be riding it this week for the first time with the new protection on and so on. Shouldn't change the feel of the bike too much, but we'll see. And I'll give you a little update on how that goes. Just one last thing. I've been considering doing a bladder conversion to the shock at the back here. Might still do that, but right now the bike's feeling so good that I'm happy. But as you know, that's only temporary, right? Improve things, level goes up, you're content for a little while, and then 3 rides later you're looking for the next thing. So I suspect that'll happen, but right now I'm happy. And thanks for watching. Catch you next time.